Hi guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. For those that don't know me, my name is Kirsty Mitchell and I create content for all things fitness, health and lifestyle. On this episode, we're going to chat about something that I have struggled with most of my fitness, I won't say career, but fitness life. For about 10 years now I've been training, all types of training, and I think we'll dig right into it. So basically what I want to chat about is 3 different types of exercises that I've kind of dabbled in or experienced in my 10 years of my own fitness journey, and which I find is working best for me, and pros and cons I suppose of each journey that I've been on. Journey, whether long or short, it could have been 6 months, 5 years, and each to their own. At the end of the day, I just want to put out a disclaimer that this is based on my own personal experience, and obviously my body is different to your body and different to the next person's body, but this is my general consensus or perspective that I've gained from dabbling in these different kinds of sports. The 3 sports are bodybuilding, CrossFit, and then running, or like endurance training. It doesn't have to be specifically running, right? And the 3 different categories that I've lumped within each of these sports are your appetite, so your hunger, and then fitness, so how fit I was in each of these sports, and then also the aesthetics, so what I looked like, and maybe how other people would look as well, or can relate to this. This is my Piccanini, Misty. So I'm gonna start off with bodybuilding. I did bodybuilding a good, I think about 9 years ago. It was very short-lived for good reasons, and I'll get into that. So basically my own story, I'm just going to throw in under each sport so you understand where I'm coming from, is I started literally when I was 17 or 18. I think I was just out of school, so fresh out of school, probably 18 years old, and I decided to do a bodybuilding competition because it was trending at the time. And so for me, I went kind of, full force, didn't get a proper coach. So, kudos to those who did it their first time and got a proper coach involved. But I did my own diet, I ate freaking dry chicken and egg whites and broccoli and all of those things on repeats. And then eventually close to the competition, you eat like fish, but with no sauces or spices or anything like that. And egg whites, that was like my meal for a full week before the competition. I understand that's not all bodybuilders' meals, but generally closer to a competition they would cut out all spices, sauces, sweetener, just to avoid any unnecessary water retention. Some people also take diuretics, but anyway, so I did that. Very short-lived, like I say. I only did 1 competition. I found that, when I was there, all the women were talking about, and I'd never used steroids or anything like that. I actually did end up taking half a diuretic, and that basically just drains your body of any excess water weight. But so when I was there, I basically met a few girls, and they were all speaking about, what steroids they're on, and, what the one girl had taken like 11 diuretic tablets. I understand this isn't everyone's experience, but for me, this was a huge shell shock. I thought I'm doing this for health and fitness, and getting there and everyone's on steroids or taking diuretics. I don't know, I didn't feel healthy for me, right? And I went on this journey for health and fitness. So I went on stage, I did the thing, it was cool. I did get very lean. I'll pop up, well, not very lean, I mean, to my standards, it was quite lean. I'll pop up some pictures that I have of the day. It was nothing dramatic. I literally came just playing sports in school, and then I did a diet. It was just bikini. It wasn't anything, hectic, with lots of muscles. I know there's lots of other divisions where it requires a lot more muscle. So that was my experience. Basically, long story short, try to stay that like competition lean. Afterwards, I blew up, I put on all this water weight because I ate crap for the next 10 days. And obviously there's, post-show eating, reverse dieting and things, that you should do properly. So just to be transparent, I did not do the whole process properly, right? But that being said, that was my experience with bodybuilding. Not very long-lived, but I've been friends with a lot of bodybuilders, a lot of bodybuilders. And I know what the process is to get to stage. And the next one was CrossFit. So CrossFit is more of a recent thing for me. About 2 years ago, I just started training, and I dived into it really hectically. I would train like 2 hours a day, and obviously I also had a full-time job. So it was a lot for me, but I didn't realize it at the time. I was just trying to get as good at it as possible, and it kind of whipped me in the butt, after I like burnt out. It was crazy, but that's not how you need to train. I went overboard. That was my own mistake. Even not going overboard, it is quite taxing. I think the conditioning, you have to really push yourself. You dig really deep, you go into like this black hole, and you just have to like push as hard as you can. And so you push yourself really hard in CrossFit. I will say it's one of the hardest, it's the most, one of the most mentally challenging sports that I've done. And I've played provincial sports back home, water polo and hockey, and I won't say it even is a fraction of how hard CrossFit is, specifically the conditioning, and obviously learning the techniques of the other things, the snatches and cleans and, whatever, muscle up, which I can't do. But anyways. So, that's my experience with CrossFit. And then the last one, running. So these are obviously three very different sports. Running, I also just dabbled in for, I would say, about 6 months. I did 2 half marathons just to taste, to see, is this what I want to do? Do I like it? Don't I like it? It was extremely also mentally challenging for me, because I like a fast-paced sport, sprinting, not having to be stuck in my own head for so long, because I'm quite an anxious person. But I learned to overcome, it was a really, really good thing for me to learn to stay present and, in my mind, and being okay with being present and not trying to rush to the next thing, because you can't rush a 21 kilometer, you can't rush a 10 kilometer, because you will burn out within the first kilometer, and you'll realize oh crap, I should have slowed this down. And you're supposed to get faster, if anything, not get slower. So that was running. I only did 2 half marathons, and that's the background to the 3 different sports for me personally. So this is my summary that I would like to say. I mean, for people that have maybe experienced the same thing, I'm with you. This is my summary of basically my hunger that I experienced while doing these sports. Aesthetics, so the way that my body looked and how I felt in my body, specifically obviously the way that I looked, the aesthetic, and then the last one being how fit I was doing these sports. So I'm going to rate them on a scale from 0 to 10. And obviously this could be different for everyone. I mean, you can let me know in the comments if you've experienced the same thing, or if it's different. All our bodies are different. We have different genetics. I totally get that. So also totally cool if you didn't experience it, or you didn't have it, the same way. I'm going to start with the bodybuilding side of things. Generally, what bodybuilders do is they will weight train. They don't do any intense cardio or anything like that, because that obviously is a lot tougher on the nervous system, and it makes your cortisol higher, it makes you hungry, and bodybuilders get down to really low calories close to the show, right? So they can't be doing anything extremely taxing on the body, right? So sprinting or HIIT classes and things like that would just send their hunger through the roof. So they try to avoid that kind of cardio. If anything, they will be doing slow incline walks on the treadmill, or slow cycling, things like that, low intensity cardio, to prevent their cortisol from rising, which will cause them to have more hunger, right? So for me personally, the hunger on a bodybuilding diet, at a normal amount of calories, let's say about 1,500 to 1,800, which is still a deficit for me personally, but I would say that I was still fine, because the weight training and the low intensity cardio didn't make me so starving that, I felt like I needed so much food. I would actually be okay on that amount of calories. Obviously closer to a show or something like that, you would dial it down. People get as low as 800 calories a day the week of the show, or even less, I'm not sure. But so the hunger scale in a bodybuilding setting, I would say would be around a 5, because you're not that starving unless you're closer to show. I'm not speaking about closer to show, I'm saying the usual either off season or the beginning of your cut. It's not so dramatic, and I just didn't experience that much hunger personally until I was closer to the show. Then obviously you do get a lot hungrier, but it's not long lived. It's 2 or 3 weeks that you're really in a deficit where you're struggling and you're hungry, right? So the hunger, I would give a level 5. Fitness. So the fitness, I don't feel like any bodybuilders, and no shade to bodybuilders, but I don't feel like the bodybuilding sport is for people that want to be really fit. It's definitely focused on the aesthetic, right? So I didn't feel fit at all on a bodybuilding program, because you're lifting weights to try get stronger, to build muscle, not necessarily even to get stronger. Actually, it's just to build the muscle for the aesthetic, for the way that it looks on stage, right? And then you're doing low intensity cardio. So I mean, I don't know many bodybuilders that can just up and run 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers and be okay, or to go to a HIIT class and not die, because most days they're doing strength training, and then if anything they'll do low intensity cardio. So the fitness side of things I would definitely give, like, for the muscles, for the fitness that's gained for in between sets, and also the low intensity cardio, I would give it a 4, maybe a 4 or 5 4.5 maybe. But yes, this is based on my personal experience again, just to clarify, and no shade to bodybuilders, this is just my personal experience. And then the last one is on the aesthetic, right? So obviously the bodybuilding sport is centered around aesthetic. You get on a stage with super bright lights, and you put tan on, and you're wearing heels for the girls, to show and pop all your muscles, and you're posing in a way that would be pleasing to the eye. So it is all about the aesthetic. And I'll pop a picture up of some really well-known bikini bodybuilders, and even the ones that are in the more intense classifications. So yeah, and you will see what they look like. They get really lean, their muscle is on point, maybe too lean for most people, but aesthetically to the world, the Instagram models are all the ones where you can see the shredded abs and the glutes popping, and the leg definition, arm definition, shoulder definition. So aesthetics is obviously a huge thing for bodybuilding. So I'm going to give aesthetics a solid 8, maybe 8.5, just because I'm not giving it a 10 just because I personally don't love the look of being super lean. I like a little bit of health, just a little bit of, a little bit of something, on the muscle, a little bit of fat maybe, but stage lean, for a lot of people is what the goal is. I know it's not sustainable, so maybe that's also playing in my mind. But for me, an 8.5 is a solid score, and, it is a sport built around the aesthetic, right? So those are my scores for bodybuilding. And then we get to CrossFit, right? So CrossFit on the nervous system for me was really intense, but I was trying to do a program as like a beginner, proven program by like the world's fittest woman, Tia-Clair Toomey, as someone who just started CrossFit. So I was pushing myself way too hard. Obviously I couldn't do a lot of the movements, but I would sub them out, and it would be really hard for me to do. And I would do more than one conditioning. It would be 2 or 3 conditionings in a day. And yeah, so I went in too hot, right? Like most of the things that I did, or most of the sports that I do or try out. And yeah, so I must say, with the hunger being the first bracket that we're chatting about, I was extremely hungry while doing CrossFit. I mean, I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I would need a meal. Like, it's not even, I can't just skip it. I can't just force myself back to sleep because I am hungry. And Misty is on a mission. Misty, I was starving while doing CrossFit. I'm not gonna lie. And even now when I do, like, if I do too much CrossFit, I do find myself being hungry, even if it's an hour, of a solid class or conditioning. Most of the time, if I do CrossFit here in Oman, we do it for 2 hours. So we'll do the strength and then the conditioning. So the hunger, I'm definitely going to put on a solid 8.5, 9, because I find myself to be extremely hungry when I'm doing CrossFit. Like I said, I would wake up at 3 in the morning and I would need a meal and then struggle to go back to sleep. So for me personally, it wasn't sustainable, because then I would struggle to fall asleep and I had work the next day, So for someone that has a full-time job, my job isn't exactly not stressful either. I'm an auditor. So yeah, hunger, solid 9. And then we are getting to the aesthetic. So I'll pop up a picture of, really supreme athletes or, elite athletes, what they look like. And these are people, keep in mind, that train 6+ hours a day. So the average Joe that trains 1 or 2 hours a day at a CrossFit gym isn't necessarily going to look like this. But for women, I must say that the general, consensus is that the women don't love the way that they look when they're getting big and bulky. And not that that's always the case. Some women may really like it, but most women don't enjoy getting bigger and not fitting in their clothes, even though, maybe it's healthy, maybe they've got getting some solid muscle. The general consensus and society in general, if a girl is bulky or if she's feeling bulkier, they generally don't enjoy it, right? So for me personally, I would also say I'm the typical woman. If I look at the screen, there's a lot of CrossFit athletes that I wouldn't want to look like. They'll say it's too much, too much muscle, just from an aesthetic point of view. For a woman, I still want to feel feminine, but I love muscle. I love how good it is for you. Firstly, that's the most important part. And secondly, it's really nice to feel strong. It's a really nice thing to feel like you can lift some heavy weights, so I would still, if I'm being completely honest, give the aesthetic maybe a 5. And this is talking about the general CrossFitters. I'm not speaking necessarily supreme athletes, elite athletes. Maybe we'll give them an 8 because they train 6+ hours a day. Not the average Joe's body is not going to look like that unless you're training 6+ hours a day and your nutrition is absolutely on point. I'm definitely speaking about the general population here. So yeah, that's the aesthetic for me for CrossFit personally. And the fitness level, I don't even know if I have to talk about that. They are good at everything. that is what the CrossFit community is, right? That's what the point of the sport is to not just be good at one discipline, not just powerlifting or weightlifting or running, or kind of HIIT training, intensity, cardio. They are good at everything. They're good at weightlifting and powerlifting and gymnastics, and really intense cardio, pushing themselves to extremes. So CrossFit, fitness, I'm going to give a solid 10. I don't think there's any sport on the planet that beats the fitness that you get by doing CrossFit. No matter, even if they are bigger, even if they are whatever, they're extremely fit. Even myself, I was my most fit when I was doing that conditioning. So that's the fitness side of things from the CrossFit perspective, or the CrossFit bracket. And yeah, what have we got left? So the last one, which is my current situation or my current favorite, is running. And I never thought I would say that. Definitely not 3 or 4 years ago, Kirsty, but I have to say that on the scales of the running and bodybuilding and CrossFitting, running for me personally is what works best in, keeping me fit and the way that I prefer looking, and in terms of my hunger, surprisingly. So in terms of hunger for running, I would say, depending on what kind of training I'm doing, but for the most part, I'm definitely not as hungry as when I'm doing CrossFit, and I'm definitely not as satiated as when I'm doing bodybuilding. It's somewhere in the middle. So I would give hunger about a 6.5. If anything, I think that's, the perfect number for me. I am a little bit hungrier than what I would be in a bodybuilding diet and bodybuilding training, but I'm also not nearly as hungry as when I'm doing CrossFit. I don't wake up in the night starving. So that's a plus. So for me, hunger, I would give a 6 or 6.5 from running. And then in terms of the aesthetics, so this is now quite interesting. I find myself being the smallest when I'm running, but definitely I wouldn't say the leanest. So my body gets smaller, but as a result of, I feel like I do lose muscle when I'm running. I also lose some fat. So I get smaller, but my body fat percentage doesn't necessarily change that much. If anything, a little bit, and I will get a little bit leaner, but not that much. So aesthetic, I think for me personally, to feel, still fit and healthy and liking the way that I look and not feeling very bulky or anything like that, I would give running a solid 8. I feel good on running. Even if I'm not necessarily lean, you can't necessarily see my abs or anything like that. Maybe a little bit, but not much. But I still love the way that I feel in my clothes. I feel a little bit more confident. So yeah, I'll give running a solid 8 when it comes to aesthetics. I'll also pop a picture up of an endurance athlete, which is nothing like what I look like, or like most people who run look like, unless you're, a really, really avid runner and it's a sport of yours and it's been a sport of yours for years and you spend many hours running. It's not a big chance that you're going to look like this, or you're just genetically quite small and petite or lean. So yeah. And then the last one is the fitness. So obviously, running, if you're really practicing running and you're really making it a priority, then I do think you can get really, really fit on running. There's multiple different types of running. You can do zone 2 runs that increase, your endurance fitness, and you can do sprints, you can do hill sprints as well. So yeah, there's a lot of different types of running, but ultimately fitness is also pretty high with running. Definitely not on CrossFit's level of fitness, because it's not, I wouldn't say all-round fitness. You're running fit, but if you went to like a, let's say a HIIT class that involved some weights, you might not do as well or nearly as well as a CrossFit or anything like that. But I would give running a solid 7.5, 8 in terms of fitness. And I am talking about the average individual, the normal person. I'm not speaking about elite athletes or anything like that. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this little review and my perspective on things. I know that this isn't everyone's experience. There's a lot of people that aren't built like me and will have different results and different perspectives, but that's okay. I mean, this is totally my personal opinion. And yeah, I mean, you're welcome to tell me your opinion, and I'm extremely open-minded. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed my first video, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.